Welcome back to the broadcast time that we now take a look at the newspaper. And as always, People Daily, Standard Newspaper, and the Daily Nation. Joining me for the same is Ann Tuku, who's a political analyst and also a member of the JW Lobby Group, and of course will be joining us this morning to go through the newspapers together. And importantly, we'll also be having Kijana Steve Nderi, political scientist. It's been a minute since we had him, but we are glad he's back. And ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you, Anne, in studio, and Kijana Steve via Skype. And to take us through, not so much has been happening over the weekend. Of course, not forgetting the aspect of BBI, which has been there for the longest of time, and also that historic presidential race in the United States. That's technically what people have been following up, but there are some developments in regards to these particular stories, and that's what we'll be looking at. I mean, as most of them have been captured on the newspapers, the People Daily right here with me. And one of the biggest stories that is right at the top and expounded on page 5, more than 2,000 arrested for breaking curfew rules. This even as the COVID-19 numbers in the country continue to go up. And I'd love to hear Ann Tuku's view on this particular scenario. I mean, there's so much tension and fear as to how best we can be able to deal with COVID-19 in the country as of now. But it is very unfortunate to see that, such crackdowns would literally get most of the Kenyans relaxed and overlooking the importance of being cautious and keen in ensuring that they uphold them or they uphold them. Anne?
Well, it's quite a pity that so many of us got to relax when, of course, the rules were also relaxed. This has brought about what we are seeing as the surge, and the reason why we need to be very, very careful is that, it's been a very short time and you see what the figures are saying right now. Mm-hmm. We need to get really serious as Kenyans. I mean, it starts with me before it gets to the government. Mm-hmm. So it's upon each and everyone's responsibility to be watchful, to take care of their own health. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, well, that's more like it. And Kijana Steve, we've been talking about COVID-19 for a long time. But after the restrictions were eased, you disappeared, and now that you're back, I'd love to hear your take on what is happening in the country. It is so unfortunate, but it is here with us, and so to speak, that we still can have people being arrested for flouting the curfew rules. And at some point in time, when President Uhuru Kenyatta called upon the Interior Ministry to deal with flouters of the law, these concerns were raised as to whether the police would take advantage of the scenario, to even be brutal on the people. And it looks like such is also playing out.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that Kenyans are really breaking the rules, but we must say that when a fish starts to rot, it starts from the head. And the head of this country is the government. We have seen politicians on the forefront of breaking curfew rules, including the president himself when he went to sell BBI in Nyanza after the launch in Kisii. Mm-hmm. They held rallies, including the whole top tier have been holding rallies and breaking rules. Mm-hmm. So that has been encouraging Kenyans to look at it and see if these big people don't fear corona, then, as they always say, hii kitu iliisha. But if we look at the figures, it is still in a bad situation. Personally, I don't believe that coronavirus was ever down even when the restrictions were eased. Because if you remember back then, the kind of testing capacity that we had had kind of gone low. Mm-hmm. So basically, we can't say that coronavirus ever, went low or was probably on a flat curve. Yeah. But I think we eased restrictions at a time where things were still bad. But remember, we still needed to free up the economy. So looking at the clubs, there is something that we are not really speaking about. Yes, we are going to the clubs and attacking them for probably opening past the curfew time, which is 9. Mm-hmm. But remember, coronavirus is not going to be fought by observing curfew hours. The more the police go and fight people who are boarding matatus in town and beat them up, that will not stop coronavirus. Mm-hmm. The issue about coronavirus is hand washing, it's social distancing and wearing masks. So if we are going to these clubs simply because they're operating past 9, yet before past 9, they are still operating in a way that does not follow the COVID-19 guidelines.
Yeah.
Then we are still not going to be doing anything. So I don't think we really need to be just focusing on the issue of them not operating within curfew hours, but on whether these establishments are also operating on normal times following COVID-19 guidelines. Because if you go there at 7, you will still find people not following social distancing and even not really following some of these guidelines. So I think it is not a matter of just curfew, but we need to really sensitize our people to actually understand that this virus is there. It's actually very sad because in Nyeri we have lost very many people in the recent past. Numbers have been rising. We have lost the MD for the Nyeri Water Service company. We have also lost a member of the Limu Fund board. We are losing people who are notable. That's to mean that also so many others who are not even notable are also passing on. So I think it's a big problem that we need as Kenyans to really now stop being arrogant and ignorant about it and really focus on protecting each other.
All right, well, and as such is what we are expecting. But to leave that particular one and come to a different story altogether, what Biden's victory means, and where some experts think the incoming president will be good for Kenya and Africa, others say Trump was Nairobi's best bet, having okayed direct flights to U.S. and started negotiations for a bilateral trade deal. A story captured on page 6 and 7, and also on the other side, captured on page 8, it says Trump's dilemma: exit or get evicted. This even as, yes, the outgoing president argues that he should be able to challenge this in court. According to him, well, there were malpractices that were conducted during these elections. Then one would want to ask, what is the role of the incumbent towards ensuring that he or she guarantees a country, a free and fair electoral process, if the very same incumbent is the one who's crying foul? And coming to you, Anne, what do you make of what has been the events of the electoral process in the United States?
According to me, it's been very fair. And this is because, there's no way, there's no single minute that we've seen, any of the complaints, being brought to book or to a place where it can be debated. This is just the incumbent talking about it, but we've not heard from any other quarters. I know it can be very sad to lose an elections, and especially if you're in the incumbent, but I really would wish that if he would be in a position or able to at least substantiate this, then it would have more weight than it does right now. On the issue of whether or not the elections were rigged or there were malpractices, maybe he would have to prove and perhaps then go to the court of law. But just saying it from the streets, that may not, really carry any water.
And true to it, looking at that aspect of what we stand to gain, or what Africa stands to gain, and equally on that aspect that once something is in court, one would argue it is too early to celebrate. Maybe one should wait and see what direction the courts would take. I'd love to hear from you, Steve. One, what do you suppose we stand to gain? And importantly, in the event that this takes a different direction, or is it even likely to take a different direction, what would it mean for America's democracy, and importantly the global fraternity that looks up to America as the bigger brother?
First of all, for Kenya, I think we need to start with looking at the fact that Kenya had very good relations with the United States recently. If you looked at the bilateral trade deal that was in the process, it was not yet completed. You remember the issue of the Mombasa-Nairobi highway that was going to be constructed by America. I think there was some sort of a deal. All those were deals that were initiated between Kenyatta and Trump. So I think that during Trump's administration, Kenya would have really gained a lot from trade deals and a lot. But if you look at it recently, there was a controversy where it was alleged that part of that deal, there was going to be some sort of dumping of waste from America or from the US to Kenya. And Congress really challenged that. And it was quite shameful where Kenyans, some Kenyans like myself were asking, how bad is it that it is actually Congress in the US which is actually realizing that there were such faults in the deal when our own parliament, which is supposed to safeguard our interests, didn't even really consider such things. Now, away from that, I think that Biden is going to be a president who has actually said he is going to re-engage with the world. I think I love the fact that Biden is also going to review the policy on climate by the US. And he said that he's going to reverse most policies, including the one that had Trump leave the Paris agreement on climate matters. So I think Biden is going to re-engage with the world. He's going to re-engage with China. You know that Trump had really shut off some perceived enemies of the United States. And I think Biden seems to have a calm demeanor, and he seems to be really going to re-engage with those who are shut down by the Trump's administration. So I think Trump, of course, having been going on a divisive agenda, I think probably that was simply because that was what brought him to election, and he believed that was what was going to make him remain. And if you look at some of the people who are really protesting after Trump's loss, they are not protesting simply because Trump has gone. It is because Trump identified with their souls. He identified with what they loved. They are pure racists, most of the citizens there, as allegedly, and they also kind of I identified with him as a person. So I believe Trump will be missed, and looking at it, unfortunately, it seems that the people of the United States had a personal problem with Trump, because if you look, they didn't have a problem with the Republican Party. The Republican Party is still going to get back its seats in the Senate, it's still going to get back its seats in the Congress, even if it's not going to be a majority. So I think Trump's loss was a personal loss, and I think it's the people of the United States saying they had a personal problem with him. However, he has raised key concerns that cannot be ignored. The fact of rigging is something that probably should be looked into, and I think he has proceeded to a court, to the Supreme Court. And looking at the Supreme Court, of course, where he has a majority, he recently nominated a judge, I think Amy Cornett or something of the sort. I think probably the Supreme Court probably could be in his favor and will probably look at these key issues. But there is something we must learn from the United States elections. And that is why you are asking, what is the role of the incumbent in protecting the election? This is the issue. In America, every state creates its own laws for elections on how to elect a president, a governor, and even the local state elections. Right. So basically, states like Pennsylvania were running on its own laws, not on the federal laws. Okay. And that is why we had a problem with the issue of the mailing ballots and other issues. So looking at the USA, I think the fact that Trump is raising issues of rigging is something that we cannot...
I think we lost him, but well, all that is debatable based on how you view it as we try and get a hold of him. And let's take a look at a different story altogether that has been captured right here on the People Daily. Police collude with land fraudsters claims report. And this is a survey that has been conducted by NPS Fingers Law Enforcers. NPS, that is, argues that law enforcers are out there to help, our people who grab land and, protect thieving cartels in Embakasi, Mlolongo, and other places. And without even delving deep into the report, land grabbing issues have been rampant in Nairobi. Just the other day, the MCA of Parklands, Maldi, was out here, trying to push for a bill that would address that, especially right here in the Nairobi at the level of the county assembly. And I'd love to loop you in, Anne, to hear what you have to say in regards to this. And now that, of course, this report dictates that even police have joined in cohorts with these cartels to, ensure that they fleece and they even get to grab land for the particular, Kenyans who own this particular lands rightfully. What do you make of it and the issue of land grabbing in the country? And I mean, even the historical injustices on the matters of land.
land issues, land grabbing, injustices from the historical times. These are issues that, you know, this has been a thorn in Kenya and Kenyans for the longest time. It's high time that the government, you know, took a decisive measures on how to deal and handle this once and for all. When we talk of police being a part of this, you know, it hurts me, it pains me as a Kenyan, because I know that, you know, these policemen are the same people who are underpaid. These policemen are the same people who, you know, don't get to enjoy so much privileges, you know, as the people who really work for Mwananchi. So they may be tempted to go out there and try to fend for themselves in different ways, including colluding with such kind of people. But really, this is a thorn in the flesh of Kenya and Kenyans, and land grabbing, historical injustices, these are things that will not go away, not unless we as a country, led by the executive, decisively deals with this issue. We need to see a lot happening, because very little is happening currently, has been happening. You know, we have even people sitting in as high offices as the cabinet being accused of issues to do with land grabbing and all that. We don't see much happening, and this makes even the lowest cadre, man or woman, want to join in the team, to want to, you know, go out there and also do their stuff, join in the land grabbing and all this kind of thing. It's all juggled up, but just like Steve says, when the fish rots, it starts from the head. We need to deal with this right from the top and see to it that we clean up the entire system, even with the government officials themselves. I mean, let this be dealt with decisively. Let's not just, you know, keep going round and round about it because it touches on someone who is sitting high and mighty, it touches on XYZ. You know, we can never be able to deal with this decisively, not unless we hit it bang on the head.
All right, well, do we have Steve? All right, we'll come back to you and just take a look at what is on the Daily Nation, the front page. Daily Nation, Trump refuses to concede defeat. U.S. leader moves to court citing fraud. That is a story captured on page 6, and I think we've already touched on the same. But coming to the matters of BBI, Uhuru Raila to meet governors and ward representatives, handshake partners, and so much so. This is a story that has been captured on page 5 of the Daily Nation, and I'd love to hear your take on this one. The BBI itself, the document, whether you think it you know, addresses the issues of the people of Kenya. You'd probably not be in agreement to some of the clauses, but do you suppose then this will be the ultimate solution to the problems that bedevil us as a people? And
this is definitely not going to be the solution to the Kenyans' problems. The BBI as a document was expected, and I want to believe that each and every Kenyan, including myself, really hoped for a document or a proposal that would attempt to tackle or handle or face the issues and the problems that Kenyans face. Unfortunately, what has come up is something totally different from the expectations of the many, and there are particular things that we hoped that the team would incorporate and handle. For instance, when we talk of, you know, the bloated executive, the bloated legislature, really, Kenyans are already grappling with so much in their hands. We need to place meals on our tables. We have fees to pay. We have house rent and all these other bills. We have a very high public wage bill, which is taken care of by a very big percentage of whatever Kenya makes, even through the KRA. So when they come up with a document stating that they want to, you know, bloat the legislature, they want to bloat the executive, this really does not get down well with Wanjiku, because Wanjiku is looking at ways and means in which we can be able to, you know, cut down on the costs, to be able to have something reach Wanjiku, the common Mwananchi. But when we bloat this, when we insist on overrepresentation, then we really do not care about Wanjiku. So for me, this document is not really a good one, and it does not aim at solving the issues that we have. When it comes to issues of inclusivity, you've heard them say that they want to, bring just a few of the regional kingpins or representation into the executive. Those are only 5 people. Kenya has 44 tribes. If we were to speak of inclusivity, then we would imagine that we would want to bring the whole 47 tribes of us to the table and have every one of the tribes occupying a seat somewhere. But how possible is this? Do we even have the financial muscle to be able to sustain this? The answer is a resounding no. So how else do we want to look into inclusivity as an issue? We have looked at different options, and we even suggested to the BBI team, my team and I suggested to the BBI team that, hey, we could look at this by perhaps, wanting to, lower the pay, make the seats, the elective seats, less lucrative, these allowances and all these other goodies that they get by being in those elected positions. Once we scrap all this and have those positions be remunerated like any other civil servant, then it will make these seats less lucrative, and people will run away. People will take off and go back to their professions. We want to see doctors going back to the hospitals. We want to see lawyers going back to the courts. We want to see each and every other person going to wherever it is that their profession demands that they be, and not just here in the politics arena. Only those people who are called and have Kenya and Kenyans at heart, these are the only people who will remain representing, because it will be very, very lowly paid, and it will be less lucrative. So we look at this and think that, hey, this could be a way of, bringing about inclusivity. When we talk about, lowering the cost of living for common mwananchi, because these politicians, these elected and elective positions, they do not get to feel the pinch down here. It's us who know what we have to go through in order for us to be able to, carry their burden, carry them on our backs. We have to pay them, we have to pay them these allowances and all this and all that. But as it is right now, Kenya is on its deathbed. Kenya is bleeding, and we cannot afford such luxury. Kenya is not able to afford that.
Well, and of course, briefly, Steve Kijana, I'd love to hear your take on the BBI report now that it's officially out. Briefly, even as you ponder in this particular story that has been captured also on page 4, degree shocker for MPs, MCAs in 2022 polls as new law takes effect.
Well, I believe that, first of all, starting on the new law was passed long ago on requiring politicians to have degrees when vying for some of these important seats. However, even in 2017, as we were vying, the law still existed, but members of parliament have been suspending that law for specific elections. So far, it has not worked for any elections. So we have a situation where to vie for Senate today, or to vie for Member of Parliament like we did back then, you only needed to probably be literate. There was no academic qualification. And I think that is a law that, even as they challenge it, it's a law that should finally take effect. However, I don't even think that members of County Assembly need to challenge it, because most of the members of Parliament also don't have those degrees. So they are also going to really try and suspend the law once more. Now, going back to the BBI report, I think the BBI report is a report that probably doesn't look like it's uniting Kenyans. The current conversation in itself about the BBI report is not uniting the country. In itself, it's dividing the country. And I think it's quite an unfortunate affair where a report that was meant to unite the country is actually dividing it. And I think looking at the retired Major Sei's comments, where he said that they were not actually involved. And I've heard the analyst in the studio today say that they made their propositions on their proposals, but they were not really considered. So I think the people who drafted the BBI report already had a template, or they already had something in mind, even as they were going around asking for opinions. So I think the BBI report as it is, it does not really represent the views of the people. I remember when the people of the Mount Kenya went to Meru to present their proposals, there was quite a discussion about the issues of guaranteed minimum returns for tea and coffee and some of these agricultural products. And they were all over saying that the Mount Kenya believe they are the majority in this country, and therefore 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling should count. But looking at it in the BBI report, it did not really appear. So we also saw the people of the pastoralists community also say that their opinions were not represented. So I think the BBI report is something that, as most leaders are saying, should be subjected to a lot of scrutiny.
Right.
It should be subjected to a conversation, and it should not be rigid. But I think we should be ready to really amend it. And I think if we decide to amend it, that most or probably 60 to 70% of the proposals in that BBI report are going to be probably challenged by the people, if at all we are going to encourage a conversation. So I believe that the BBI report basically does not solve challenges, because the BBI report was initially created to solve the issues of electoral injustice, which actually have not been adequately addressed in the report. But I believe that the way forward, if you look at it, the election and the winner takes all affair is something that we really need to look at, and it's also affecting the United States. And I think creating more seats is not going to really solve the winner takes all affair, because if Raila Odinga did not accept defeat, if something else, even with BBI, the next candidate fails to accept defeat, are we going to go back to really draft another BBI to unite the country? So I think we need to also unite the country in principle and not as a matter of administrative seats.
Okay. All right. Well, that and is also a story that has been captured on the front page of the Daily Nation. Ruto not losing any sleep over ICC case. Lawyer Katwa Kigen, says that case against DP collapsed because allegations were unfounded. And I think we've been following up on this particular. Is also a story that is also on the page 2, that is on the second page of the People Daily. Gishuru to contest ICC witness tampering allegation case. And we've all been following up on this briefly in 30 seconds. What do you make of this, and what is likely to culminate out of this developing story, Anne?
It was once taken to the ICC. Whatever happened, happened. Going back to dig and coming up with issues, barely scratched from the surface, according to me, may not really carry the day, because whatever it is that was first presented is basically the same thing that we still have. I don't think there are any new witnesses who have come up apart from that fellow who presented himself. So for me, this is a non-starter.
All right, and of course, coming to you, Steve.
I think, first of all, the issue of Wakili Philip or Wakili Kishero going at this point is quite suspect, considering the current political state of affairs in the country. And I think it's not going to be healthy for a country that is trying to heal from tribal divisions. And I have seen Tim Kieleweke really romanticize the issue of the lawyer going there. And I think they have been trying to insinuate that he could probably spill the beans on probably the issues that happens about witness tampering. So I want to see how this goes, but I think it also challenges our local criminal justice system. The fact that we are actually speaking about witness tampering and not actually the crime itself, it shows how bad our criminal justice is, because we have not even been really able to get to such points of addressing such social evils or such, misgivings. So I think let's see how it goes, but I don't think that it is in good faith. I think it is quite suspect how he presented himself, but we're going to observe and see what happens.
All right. Well, I think on that very note, time is not so much on our side. We have to cross over to a different segment altogether where we'll be discussing the politics of the day. So technically, all the stories that have been captured here will be captured on that particular discussion. Thank you so much, Anne and Steve Derry, for the great insights. That's where we get to wind up this segment of Newspaper Review. And after this break, we're coming back with more. So don't you go anywhere.